sons of Kryos.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Judd.
And we are
the Sons of Kryos. And our show is about play.
And everything that happens at the gaming table.
Sometimes we will venture under the gaming table.
Sometimes we'll go to the fridge.
Or the bookshelf.
And sometimes we'll go to the computer.
But we're always going to try to keep our show centered around that game table. That's our home. That's what the show is about. That's what interests us.
This show is a member of Goblin, the gaming broadcast network. gbncom.com.
Hi everybody and welcome to show 18.
We've got a doozy for you. Jeff is going to talk about drifting.
We are going to talk about good sentences with Judd.
Yeehaw. We're going to talk about how to play PTA.
And then we are going to have some scale mail.
Heck yeah. In the tradition of Stan Lee.
Stan Lee?
Yeah, he always
answered
scale
his mail.
No, he always answered his mail, though. Back in the 60s Marvel days.
Darn right, man. Mail is awesome.
Not that I was born, but I hear that he did.
Right. That's
anyway.
Cool. Stan Lee rocks.
Fair enough. Drifting, Jeff.
All right.
You like to get under the hood and make games do what you want them to do.
I do, man. Because
why aren't you happy with them out of the box?
Well, it's not that I'm not happy with them exactly. It's that I could be happier.
Awesome. Good.
I will sit down and play a game right out of the box. That's fine. But I think that I guess what it comes down to is I have played quite a few games, and a lot of those games have new, interesting, cool system stuff in them. And I go, wow, that was really awesome. Wouldn't that work really well in my D20 game? Wouldn't that work really well in my Kobolds Ate My Baby game?
Right.
Wouldn't that work really well in whatever game?
Right. So you like to make Franken games, where it's like pieces of different games all put together to form one.
I like that term. That's much better. Franken games. Yeah, they really are.
I don't know if I first heard that term for the game Shadow of Yesterday, because Shadow of Yesterday has keys which are very much like spiritual attributes from the Riddle of Steel, and it has secrets which are very much like feats from D&D, and it has something else that's very much like it uses fudge dice.
Right.
So it's just a conglomeration of a bunch of different systems and put together in a really beautiful way that works really well. Yeah,
mine aren't beautiful.
No?
They're not at all. They're totally Frankenstein.
Awesome.
But they work, you know, or at least I enjoy them. You know, I guess it doesn't really matter if they work wonderfully. I enjoy them. My players at my table seem to like them, so whatever.
Do your players play any role in this decision-making of what system goes where?
Yeah, I usually will ask them, hey guys, well, I came up with another thing that I want to add to the game. What do you think about this?
Right.
For example, I ran a game yesterday. And I talked to my players about some scene that happened several games ago where something pretty horrible happened. And I remember beforehand I was talking about Call of Cthulhu. And the whole idea of insanity as a stat or a system in the game was really sticking out in my head. And I said, hey guys, well, what if we had something like that in this game? Because I think there are a couple of times where things have come up where it would really test your character's sanity. And they weren't exactly thrilled about adding another stat to the character sheet so much.
Right.
But they like the idea of having a roll or something that...
Maybe a wisdom roll.
Yeah. It's actually, we ended up making it a will save.
Awesome. Yeah, there you go.
But something that they could do to see if their character went a little quirky.
Right.
And I don't remember what system this came from. You'll probably tell me, Judd. But I said, well, if your character fails this, then you get some sort of insanity, a quirk, And whenever you play that insanity or issue and it comes out in a scene, then I'll give you another like XP reward for it.
There's a lot of games that do that.
Yeah.
So it becomes like a Shadow of Yesterday key when you get the insanity.
Right.
That's interesting.
Right. But they choose to play it or not to play it, and and I'm pushing them to play it by saying, you'll get XP.
Right, you'll get a cookie.
If you play it.
Dangling the cookies. Very good.
So yeah.
You also drifted the heck out of Aberrant.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're just drifting D20. You just drift everything you touch.
I do.
It's good.
Yeah. Like I said, it's any game. This isn't about like me playing games and not liking them. It's about me playing lots of games and liking certain things in all of them and saying, why don't I just take this? I'll take a D20 book and throw it in the pot, mix it in. I'll take a White Wolf book and throw it in the pot and stir.
I'm glad to hear that you've come more to peace with your drifting, because there was a couple of months ago where we talked about it and you were very conflicted, and I felt bad. And now you're not. You seem to have come to peace with your drifting. It
takes some time to get used to.
Right. And I think including the players in that process, so it's not just, hey, I'm throwing something in the gumbo, wait, I'm not comfortable with that, I don't like that.
Thankfully I have some really patient players.
Right.
And I also have players who are totally willing to like stand up and say, Jeff, this just isn't working.
Awesome.
We don't need this.
That's really important.
Yeah, so I throw out some stuff, and
Good.
some stuff really, gets hammered out and works really well.
It sounds like the trust at your table is pretty high.
Yeah.
These are all people you LARPed with for years.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, they know you, you know them, you've been to their home, you know their kids. Nice.
Yes. The kids. We're not going to go into kids in this, but okay, sorry. Kids scare me.
That's a whole other bit. Do they?
Yes, absolutely.
What
a kid was brought over to my game yesterday, too.
Oh.
And we're not going to get off on this sidetrack.
Want a little kid digression?
I don't think kids...
Take a 2-minute kid digression.
I don't think kids have anything to do with drifting, though.
No? Okay.
No, not at all.
I can tell my kid's story. You want me to tell my kid's story?
We just can't
2 minutes. Ready?
Right,
timing,
go.
Okay. I was at a con, and I brought JJ's son, who was about 1.5, a big 20-sided die, a big, hard 20-sided die, because I couldn't find a plush one. So I gave it to him, and it's this big. It's big as a baby's head. This thing, it's huge. I'm thinking I'm going to give this kid his first 20-sided die.
And he was like 2 years old at the time, right?
About 2 years old. He can like walk if his hands are on the coffee table. So I give it to him. I'm so proud. JJ's kind of looking at me like a little funny, and Jack Jr. picks up the 20-sided die, goes to put it in his mouth, and smacks himself in the head with it, and begins to wail, crying. And I felt terrible. And that's my story.
Wow.
I'll teach that kid to play D20.
That's what this was about. You were trying to break him early.
I was.
No D20. Throw away your dice. No D20s.
Right. No, I've got no beef with D20. It's all love. But yeah, it was just kids.
So anyway. Tell me you've drifted, Judd.
Yeah, no, I like games where the drifting is part of the deal. So like in Sorcerer, there are a whole bunch of parts of the system where you have decisions to make, and that is, as far as I'm concerned, that's drifting. Your humanity definition, how demons are summoned, it can change the game radically and change the feel of the game radically. Drifting,
but that's built into the game though.
Yes.
That you're supposed to do that. So how is that drifting?
I think it's built-in drifting. I think that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
I maybe my terminology of drifting is wrong here.
Maybe we have to define our terms better. I like games where there's a little drift, there's a little wiggle. I'm playing by the book, but it gives me room to do the exercise that I would get as drifting, but within the rules.
Right.
How's that?
And that's totally cool.
And I think Burning Wheel does that through the Monster Burner. If you read the Monster Burner and you figure out how to make your own life paths and emotional attributes, you kind of can get some driftiness in that. And I've just started to tinker with that in my head and take notes, but I haven't actually done anything with it yet and played it at the table. But Sorcerer, I've drifted the heck out of that. I've done all kinds of games with that thing.
Okay, so what about another game where it's not built into the system?
Where it's not built into the system?
Yeah.
I've certainly, when I did play D20, I drifted it because I wasn't really happy with what it was doing for me. I didn't like the way the diplomacy checks worked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you read D20 diplomacy checks, it just wasn't working for me.
Right.
So I changed the diplomacy check so that the player would roll before they went into a negotiation of some kind, and I would give them information on the person they were negotiating with's motives based on how high they rolled, which is pretty lame. That's basically a gather information check. So I used diplomacy as like this weird drifty thing that didn't really work. And my players they weren't perturbed, they weren't peeved, but I should have discussed it with them a whole lot more. I did not discuss the rules change. It was like, I don't like it, I'm throwing it away. And it was very dysfunctional drifting. It wasn't good. It was not a good drift. I think the reason why maybe I don't drift is because I'm not particularly great at it. I'm definitely good at tinkering with rules and making it do something different. But when I'm uncomfortable with rules, I'm just now getting to the point where I know how the process goes of talking with the group. Because drifting used to be just the status quo. It's what you did. I didn't even have to talk about it. Of course we're not going to play the book by the rules because the rules aren't going to work for me. But
really, wow.
I feel like now the rules work generally for me in the games I play with now.
Right.
So I feel like I have to drift less.
Well, I think a lot of the games you play, the indie games, they're kind of built expecting that.
Right. They're built expected to play out of the box, yeah.
Right, whereas like the older or larger games tend to be...
Yeah, no, I think...
We know you've come to play our game, so
right.
This is what you play.
Right.
And usually most of them even have that, in the beginning of the book saying, hey, this is your game, do what you want with it.
Right.
But,
the golden rule,
yeah,
it's called.
Absolutely. So I think, though, that we need to say to our listeners something about helping them drift if they want to try and drift some of their games.
I think we've got to follow your lead, Jeff. I think they've got to talk to their players.
Absolutely talk to your players. Make sure they're comfortable.
Which is becoming boring because that's almost always our advice.
Right. Well, but it's true. I mean, You get together, this is a very social thing.
Right.
Talk to your players about it, and then don't just implement it into the game. Come to them when you have something you want to put in and say, hey, I've got a neat idea for changing the damage and the way it works in the game. What do you guys think about letting me use it for a game session and just see how it works?
And the other thing I would say is try running it out of the box just once.
Oh, absolutely.
A rule might be making you uncomfortable because it takes you a place where you haven't been before, but that might be a good place. So give it a shot, man.
Absolutely.
Or whoa, man.
And another thing that you should do is play different games. Play different games, get some experience with other systems.
Rock on.
And see what those systems or those games bring out that you like or don't like.
Yes.
Almost everything I drift into games, I've found in other games.
Right. And I think the last thing we have to tell them is that drifting is really a form of game design. So if you find you're drifting something really hard, it might be time to write your own game.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think this is...
We're in a whole other territory. Ooh, we didn't even know we were going to go here, did you?
No. I didn't think we were going to go this.
This is on a podcast.
Ever.
It's a journey. Yeah, so if you find you've drifted really hard and far, if you're playing D&D but there are no hit points, classes, wizards or elves, you might not be playing D&D anymore. You might be, and that's okay. Hey, you're a game designer. Go for it. Post your ideas online somewhere where you can get feedback and see how it rolls. So yeah, I think drifting is a half a step from just flat out game design. So that's how it starts.
Wow.
Yeah, baby.
Well, everybody, so that's drifting. If you would like to tell us what you think, or please tell us drifting you've done.
Yeah.
We would love to hear about that.
Absolutely.
You can stop by our forums, or you can email us. Anything you want. We would love to hear about it.
Yep. And ironically, this whole segment kind of drifted here and there. Now, were we doing that on purpose in order to make a comment on drifting? Or did we really drift? We'll leave that to you to decide. And you can tell by the music that it's time for good sentences.
Good sentences.
Here's the good sentence of this week. Maybe is it a good sentence? Is it not a good sentence? We're gonna go there together.
Dude, it's gotta be a good sentence. If it's not a good sentence, this is going to be called bad sentences. And why are we giving our listeners bad sentences? I do that plenty of time, plenty on my own.
Here's the good sentence. Bad sentences. Wow, I like that. Here's the good sentence. The good sentence is, I am uncomfortable. Ooh, oh my God, a player's uncomfortable. What should we do? Stop the game. Give them a hug. My goodness, rub their tummy. Maybe you have to stop the game and rub their tummy a little bit. Maybe.
Dude, I'm totally going to play at your table more. I miss the belly rubbing.
Well, or maybe you just need to acknowledge that they're uncomfortable and move on and keep on keeping on. It just depends. It depends on what is going on.
But, Judd, why are they uncomfortable?
Exactly. I think you need to... This particular thing happened at a con game, so that's really weird because you don't really know everybody at a con game. These are a bunch of... There was one guy there, Sean, who I had gamed with before at the last con, but I hadn't seen him since. There was Emily, who I've met outside the con, but we hadn't gamed together ever before. So this is the first time she and I had ever gamed together. And then three other people who I had never met before that night. And there was a scene, and I, as the GM, just turned to them and said, listen, we are right at the line of where I'm comfortable with this scene. The violence that's going on in this scene is freaking me out a little bit.
Wow. I'm shocked, dude. You are like... you are a hardcore game master.
Well, here's the scene. The scene was this Nathan was playing a Victorian prostitute. This is going to sound like such a snooty game. There's no way to not make this game sound snooty. Just read the actual play post, will you please? There'll be a link. So Nathan's playing Macho Nathan, who made the game, the Vietnam game Carry, which we'll have a link to, is playing a Victorian prostitute, and his character's ex-boyfriend, who's a total jerk, an abusive jerk, comes to her apartment, and the conflict is on. She tries to manipulate him. If Nathan wins the hand in this is Primetime Adventures, she manipulates him into killing someone she wants dead. If he wins, he realizes that she's manipulating and slaps her around.
Oh.
Yeah, dude. But it was the only way to go, because he had already been built up to be this terrible, violent... There was nowhere else to go. Like, everything had funneled to this moment. And I told everybody that I was really uncomfortable with it, and then he lost.
Oh.
And rather than describe what happened, what we did is the scene had started on this oil lamp, kind of like a camera shot,
right?
And we faded back out to that oil lamp, and we said that in the shot you could hear the noises of the violence being perpetrated,
right? But you don't actually see it.
But I don't, walk over to Nathan and stand over him and intimidate him and call him a dirty who's it, what's it.
Right,
no.
Right.
Sometimes when you see that things are getting uncomfortable, you can fade to ceiling. And I was uncomfortable because domestic violence is terrible, and this stuff happens. It's like, I think it's the numbers are something like 1/3 of every female in America something like this happens to. So that's tremendous and awful, and we were confronting it at the table together.
Right.
I'm going to have a link to Emily, who is at that game, has a blog with Meg Baker. And they have an excellent article that you just about have to read about this very, very subject. So when you hear, I am uncomfortable, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to stop. You have to take stock. And you have to see. And you have to just make sure that you're not going to abandon everybody at the table, You have to make sure that everyone knows where the lines are. And it doesn't it's not as boring as it sounds. It's just a quick kind of... It's like a quick look. It's a quick... I'm here with you. I'm experiencing this here with you, and it's cool.
I know at the beginning of some games, I've heard people ask, is there anything that we want to take off of the table completely,
Right.
because it would make people feel uncomfortable,
right. Like
And
violence towards children,
Right.
or
or
dogs,
sex, and I think
or whatever.
I think that's a really good question to ask at the beginning of your game,
Right.
Especially if you're not as close to the people, they're not like good friends of yours. Maybe you just are playing with them at a con,
Right.
Whatever. It's a really good question to ask.
And it's a good, if you're uncomfortable, it's a good sentence to say, because if you're uncomfortable, odds are other people are uncomfortable. And if they know that someone else is in that discomfort with them, it makes them more comfortable, because suddenly you're in it together.
I really respect people who will stand up for, their own beliefs in a game like that.
Right.
Say, look, especially something like that. Hey, look, I feel I personally feel uncomfortable with like talking through sex scenes and role playing games.
Right.
It makes me feel uncomfortable. So when I, as a game master, have that type of situation in a game, I really try and go around it by just saying, oh well, you have a nice night, or
Yeah.
fade to black,
Fade to ceiling, baby.
Right, exactly.
It's important, and sometimes you have that agreement where you're not going to stop, and you're going to confront something terrible together, and that's all right too. You just have to know what you're doing, and you have to be in it together. You can't abandon them. If you take a break after that, just take a check with everybody and make sure they're all right, because who knows what this has echoed in their life. We make characters, and they're little slivers of us. I'm not saying that the Elven Ranger is me. I'm saying that there's some piece of me that I put in there to make him more real. And
you really don't want to get one of those bad pieces, though, and
Right.
pull on it and twist it around.
I had a player in an Ars Magica game who was a magus, and he had a mundane wife in-game. And he was going through a divorce in real life. And I noticed that as the divorce went on, domestic issues kept coming up in his magus's life.
Ooh.
And I was like, "Are you all right with this?" And he said, "Yeah, this is great." And I could tell that there was a little bit of therapy going on there, And he loved it, and he was bringing it on himself. So, okay, if you're cool, I'm cool.
It's also a place where people can work out a little frustration too.
Absolutely.
Maybe he turns her into a toad.
Right. I mean, if you've got a teacher at the table, have that teacher play a kid. An obnoxious kid. Nobody plays an obnoxious kid like a teacher. I'll tell you what.
Oh, dude, yeah, in one of our games.
Yeah.
It's so totally true.
So that kind of stuff where life mirrors game, not necessarily in a direct way where the teacher plays a teacher. No, switch it up, switch it on them. So anyway, we're wandering a little bit from I'm uncomfortable, but I think it's all feeding together. So I'm uncomfortable. There'll be some really good articles and links in the links pages for this. I'm going to send you over to Fair Game, Emily Carebosses and Meg Baker's blog. They have an article on this that is really well worth reading, that articulates it far better than I just did.
I'll have to look at that because I have not looked at that yet either.
Yes.
And
that's a link I want up before the show goes up, because I know sometimes there's a couple hours lag. I'll send you the link before.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's because it's my responsibility to get the links.
I'm sorry. I can't. It's
my responsibility to get the links, dude. Okay. And I think we're done with that. Are you uncomfortable, Joe?
I am feeling a little uncomfortable. Maybe we should move on to the next segment.
No, dude. We're staying here.
I'm going to go cry in the corner.
Good. Suffer. And we've got another How to Play segment. And this time we're doing How to Play Prime Time Adventures, or as we call it here, PTA.
Woo!
Prime Time Adventures is an absolutely rocking game where you get together with friends and you make a television show and you play out an episode. And hopefully you all get back together and play out a season. And the process feels a little bit like magic, because you get together and you've got nothing. As a GM, you walk up to the game, that first bit, the brainstorming process, with really nothing. And you say to the players, okay, what kind of show are we going to do? But all right, back up. Wait a minute. Here's what I've found has worked, okay? First of all, I like to start... I played this game at cons a couple of times, which is a little risky, but it's worked for me. So, first of all, you go around the table and you say, all right, what don't you want? So if you have a guy who's just come from his hometown where he plays a superhero game every week, he does not want to play superheroes again. He'll say, I don't want to play superheroes. I don't want to play a fantasy game. I don't want to play like a lame X-Files. I hate X-Files. Okay, now you know what we don't want. Now let's focus in on what we do want. And you've got to get the group ready for somebody saying, no, I don't like that idea. It is okay to say that. It's okay to flat out reject somebody's idea because it just doesn't tickle your fancy. When the good idea comes, when the idea that you're eventually going to play comes, there's going to be an audible click in the room, like the cosmic tumblers of the universe are suddenly going into place between all the people at the table. And you're laughing, maybe. Don't laugh at me. At your little cubicle. It's really true. Everything kind of comes together, there's a click, and then suddenly, yes, this is our show. And everybody kind of starts to figure out what they want to play. So, all right, you've got your show. Now,
all right, let me interrupt you here for a second, Judd. Yeah. I'm sorry about that, but from watching, I have not run PTA, but right. I played in it a number of times, and from watching you run it, one thing I have noticed, and I think it's important to add here, that you really keep the people like going in the creation process and pushing them and keeping them in line.
You know what? I like to role play a little bit when I do this. I like to role play that I'm an obnoxious producer from Hollywood. Except not stupid. Did I just insult Hollywood producers? I'm not sure I care.
Well, dude, they got rid of Firefly. Come on.
That's very true.
No faith in them.
None. So no mercy for them. I like to roleplay a little bit. You know, that I'm this producer, and the GM in this game is actually called the producer, and I'm a producer, and these imaginative people are getting together to make something out of my money. And yeah, I push it. I want them to be on task. If somebody starts, sometimes people will do something where they start playing before they're playing. And they'll say, what if we did a show about a guy who goes west and he gets all the way to the west coast and then he jumps in the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean and then he comes back and jumps in the Atlantic and then he goes in the Gulf, and it's like, whoa, dude, you're playing. How about we do a show about a guy who travels across America? Bam. You know, that's a really boring one. But you know what I'm saying?
Right,
Don't start playing before you're playing. It's a sickness. A sickness, I tell you. So that's something to watch out for. Yeah, as a producer, it's a really fine art. You want to know how it works? You want to hear how it works in the process? We're going to have a link to a show called Life on Mars that we did at a con. The sound is okay, but you can hear the brainstorming process happen. You can hear four strangers go from, what are we doing tonight, to, wow, this show rocks, I want to see it. And it happens in about 15 minutes. And it's a thing of glory. It really, really is. So if you want to hear how that works, we'll have a link to Life on Mars. So once you've got that concept, then you start narrowing down who are the player characters in that concept. And the players start picking player characters. Sometimes you'll just get a list, and then you'll just and people will start picking off the list. Now, here's something to watch for. At this point, everyone should be excited. Everyone should be ready to take a character. If you've got one, or heaven forbid, two players who are not excited, say, hey guys, this is a really cool idea. Let's shelf it. If you remember last episode, I talked about a game that went lukewarm. It was a PTA game and it didn't go well. And that's because I did not shelf an idea that most of the players were lukewarm on. They weren't that into it. They were going along with it because they were being polite. And that kind of politeness kills PTA games. Everyone has to be bought into it. Everyone has to be on the edge of their seat, excited to see what's going to come out of this next. So if that doesn't work, shelf it. Just put it to the side and say, okay, let's think of a whole other idea apart from that one and see what the next idea is.
So really completely change tracks.
Yes. And that first idea, it's not dead. You can go back to it. You can go home again if you want to. So you've got the idea. It's set. Everyone's excited. They've got that look in their eye. They're psyched. You've got the PCs. You got a list. Everybody gets together. They make up a list. Maybe someone says, "Oh, I want to play the robot. I want to play the giant robot." Excellent. They play the giant robot. You can do funky things with gender, where a guy plays a girl character and the girl plays a guy character. You can mix it up, have fun. You can decide that because it's all guys at the table, it's going to be a military thing, and so it's all guys, and that reflects the real life. These are things that have happened at my PTA games. So just be cognizant of that, you know. Furthermore, then what happens? Well, if you're at a con game, then the rules will tell you what happens next. Then you set up fan mail, and you decide whose spotlight episode it is. The PTA rules will tell you. I'm just here to give you pointers. If this is your home game, you go home with those characters and think about it, and think about what the episodes are going to look like and things that you're going to throw out there in order to make the conflicts happen. Little moments. You're not going to need to do much. In PTA, you're just going to push. Little pushes. You know, maybe in old school DMing, it's big mallets. In this, it's just little Tai Chi pushes. That's all you're doing. Little push here, little push there. And then the players will do the rest. Primetime Adventures is an amazing game. And what I really wanted to get through was that brainstorming process, because I think that's a really difficult process. And we don't tend to make things up together in that fashion very often.
It's a completely different style, and a lot of people aren't used to it.
Right.
And I know at my table, and I kind of drift a little bit with that because of PTA and how great of a game it is. But my players at first were like, huh? What?
Oh, yeah.
And it takes some time to get used to. And when you do get it, it really improves things a lot.
It's neat. It's really neat to see PTA more than any other game text that I've found really just harnesses the creative power at the table of every single player. People have read it and not really gotten it, but you've really got to play it with a group that's humming.
Now, I got a question for you, Judd, because like I said, I have not run PTA.
Yeah.
So I'm not really as familiar with every aspect of it, but I noticed that in convention games, when you create the game, you're creating a season.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But I've never seen people actually play through the whole season.
Right.
So is that something to keep in mind when you're creating a game that may not be something at home?
Yes, if you're playing a game that might not be at home, you're going to want to look. What I've found is that the players kind of want to insist on playing that first episode.
Right.
But you don't have to do that. You can look at the season, and the numbers will tell you what's interesting. That's not going to make any sense to you until you see how PTA works. It's really neat.
Just be mindful of how much time you've got to play with and what you're actually going to be playing.
Right.
Because you may have somebody who's really interested in getting their characters, like, you know, their what is it called?
Spotlight episode.
Their spotlight episode first off, and other people may not care about it.
Right.
But if you're not careful, you know, you could end up playing the wrong part of the season, and they don't get to do their spotlight.
You want to make sure if you do someone's spotlight episode, they're ready to bear the brunt of that. They're ready to labor and move that game. That's supposed to be a game about their issue. If you watch Buffy, there's that one episode where all the rest of the Scooby Gang is saving the world, and Xander is having the most hellish night of his life. And that was Xander's spotlight episode. Lost is another TV show with definite spotlight episodes, and you know what I'm talking about if you've seen it. So, yeah, PTA is a glorious game. I recommend it. It was the game that last year got the most mileage out for me. I really want to take it and play a whole season and finish it. I have not finished a season yet, which really frustrates me.
And PTA is also the game that you rated your number one, wasn't it?
And that is true. That is true. It was my number one game of last year, absolutely.
Awesome.
Definitely. We love our letters, and hence Scale Mail, which is becoming a semi-regular part of the show, which is great.
Absolutely, man. We get so much really good feedback from people. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a segment you're going to see every now and then.
We get emails from all over America, from Germany, from Portugal. It's really been cool to know that our little voices are traveling through the intraweb.
There's something called a Frapper map. Have you seen this?
Yes.
Yeah, we might have to do the Frapper map thing.
You're going to jump on the Frapper bandwagon.
I don't know. You think? You interested?
I don't know. I'm kind of lukewarm on Frapper mapping.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe not then. But it's nice to hear like where you guys are from.
Yeah, we'd love hearing from you. We'd rather just keep getting emails. Speaking of emails,
we have 2. The first one is from Mike Lucas.
Hello, Mike.
Hey, Mike. And he writes, any advice on getting non-gamers into gaming, e.g. family members, significant others, etc.? I'd love to get my wife into role-playing. I'd always thought it was impossible because she has absolutely no interest in D&D, but she might give some indie games a try. In fact, after hearing of Jeff's good experience GMing it, I bought Cat for exactly this reason. Keep up the good work. You guys keep me entertained in my bus ride.
We are the commuting kings. That's what we're going to call ourselves, the kings of the commute, because I get tons of emails that we help people on their commute, which is nice.
That's when I listen to most of my not our podcast, but that's when I listen to most of the podcasts I listen to is when I'm driving. So, Mike, getting people into gaming, wow. This has been something that I think a lot of people have talked about. Cat is an excellent game for it.
Cat's a good one. I find that Cat's a weird one because Cat doesn't have any... I mean, there are a couple of books that are somewhat bibliographical to Cat, but for the most part, Cat's like its own little thing. And when people see Cat and realize they're going to be playing a cat who is trying to save their owner, they know exactly the world they're in. And that's funky. John Wick, he's a clever one. So, yeah, I think Cat's a great... People like playing their cat. Either if it's their cat or a cat they knew. That's how I got my girlfriend to make a character. Is there was this crazy cat named Dingbat who used to sit in the middle of the street on her road, in this country road, and just sit there. And another cat who was Dingbat's sister would come by and meow and try to get Dingbat to come out from the road. And I was like, I think we need to find out. I think you need to tell me why Dingbat is not afraid of death. And she came up with this just terrible Lovecraftian story about Dingbat.
Wow.
And it was awesome. So, yeah, we've got this. What I like about Cat is it makes you make a mythology about these little things that we take for granted that are all around you.
Oh, right.
And that's cool.
Your cats do weird things. And if you own a cat, you know. We've talked about this before. Like, the cats are just, they're weird. They do some funny stuff. And it's cool to say, oh, well, this is why they do that.
Yeah.
So a really important thing about that is that Cat is a game that people can be almost instantly familiar with.
Right. And it's got a nice, easy character sheet. It's
not scary. In the sense that you don't have a lot of stuff that you really have to like wrap your head around.
My girlfriend looked at the D20 character sheet and she got a little dizzy.
Dude, I got a little dizzy when I first saw it.
So it can be a little intimidating because there's so many numbers and they don't know what it means yet. I'm not saying that everyone's significant other or dad or mom isn't going to... So there might be some real D20 heads out there waiting to come out, But you'll know. If your dad is into, war games and all that stuff, then maybe D20 is where it's at for him. And maybe Cat isn't. So my first bit of advice for anyone trying to get their significant other or trying to get a non-gamer onto the game is tailor that game carefully to them.
Check out their interests and see what they like and if there are any games that can fit into that.
Yes.
And I would suggest that the more simple the system, the better at first. If they have no experience with it, it's better if it's simple.
I would go with something simple. For example, my dad used to watch these weird samurai soap opera-ish movies that were on public access that we didn't understand because they weren't subtitled. But he'd watch them, man. He'd watch these people scream at each other in Japanese. And I'd say, Dad, what are they saying? And he'd say, I don't know, but it's really cool. And when he comes to visit next time, I'm definitely going to hook him up with a game where he's playing a samurai. I actually said, I'd like to get you gaming. And he said, oh, that'd be really cool. And I sent him a letter to his character from his lord. Ooh. And he sent me a letter back over email. And it was really cool. His letter mentioned elements of the world that I hadn't mentioned, so he's making stuff up.
Were you hopping around the table going, my dad's a gamer?
My dad is a geek, dude. It was awesome. It was really awesome. It was super cool. I was really excited. So yeah, I mean, I think you just got to tailor it. If your dad likes Star Wars, give him a lightsaber and let him be a Jedi.
Absolutely.
If your mom likes When Harry Met Sally, then maybe it's time to get them Breaking the Ice. There are different games. There are so many different types of games now that you can really find one that caters to them. As many different types of people put out many different types of games, I hope that we'll get a real ability to hook people up with a game that'll make them happy.
So another good thing, though, to do when you're trying to figure out what exactly it is that they like, talk to them about books they like to read,
right?
Particular movies that they liked,
right?
If they say, "Hey, the Lord of the Rings movies were just like the best thing since sliced bread,"
right? Then maybe you want to hook them up with Burning Wheel or something.
Yeah, right. not the Lord of the Rings RPG though.
Whatever, dude. I don't have much love for that RPG.
Yeah, I know.
If you're out there and you're listening to this and you do have love, me not having love for that RPG does not negate your good time. Just know that.
Right.
And furthermore, the other important thing when you're bringing a non-RPG player into the table is you really want to choose the group who they're going to play with carefully. I chose people, when I brought my girlfriend to play, I chose people she trusted. I chose her friends I chose people who I knew who were my friends, but she trusted them a lot.
Got to be comfortable around them.
Because it's an intimidating thing. For the first time, I mean, as Joniki put it so eloquently, you're really putting your imagination on the table for everyone to see.
Right.
And as gamers, we take that for granted. But non-gamers are not used to it, maybe. So
also make sure they're open-minded folk and that they are there to help out too.
Right.
Say, hey, look, my friend who's never played role-playing games before is willing to come and play a game, and I want to make sure that we give him or her a good time. So try and help out here. This isn't about killing the Witch King or getting XP. This is about having a good time.
Right. And the other thing you can do is set them up in a position so that they have a mentor in game. If they're a Jedi, have them be the Padawan learner and give someone else the Jedi Master so that they have someone to base it and learn off of. A Padawan who's just about to get up into journeyman, and become their own Jedi. So you can set them up for success in game, in the fiction. Good question, Mike. I hope that helps.
All right, let's move on to another scale mail from Jeff King. And Jeff writes, I do actually have an idea for something for the show. Do you guys have anything to comment on play-by-post games? Playing games on web forums. I would be interested in hearing if any of you have and what experience it was like. This came to mind as I was sitting in my crappy job wishing I was playing games. I never have played in any play-by-post games, and I have to say I find them a little intimidating.
I wrote Jeff back when he sent this letter a couple of months ago and said, no, we've never played this, Jeff. I'm sorry. We've got nothing for you. Since then, I have started a play-by-post game because I was curious. And it is, I find, to be a really frustrating medium. It is not tabletop. It is not a replacement for tabletop. It is not a substitute for tabletop. It is not tabletop light or tabletop caffeine free or tabletop anything. It is its own weird medium, and I'm not sure I like it yet. I like the writing muscle of it. I like being able to write and writing with friends. That's kind of neat. The pace can be like watching continents shift. It's just, it can be slow. You don't have body language to base on players. So, there were 2 days where nobody posted, and I emailed them, and I was like, hey, guys, do you hate this? Did I do something wrong? And they were like, no, dude, I had some soccer games with my kids, and the other guy said, oh, I just got a new job. So, I'm playing with Ben Lamont and Tony Lauerbausch, and you'll see the link. I'll put the link up, and yeah, it's a difficult thing. I'm really being very cognizant of the setup and how it works. And I would just be careful. Don't go in with expectations that you're going to get your game on like you do at the table. It's just not the same vibe. It's very different. It's like a little thing that we do.
Unfortunately, I have no advice here. I have never done a play-by-post. Maybe I should. Maybe I should stop in and check out and see what they're like.
I might start one at the end of the summer. So if I do, I'll let you know. Cool. If you have the email, if you have the internet time to do so. And that's our show.
Yeah, everybody. Another good show. Show number 18.
All right.
We're trying to stick to this every other week thing and really trying to get the shows out for you on time. Occasionally that doesn't happen, but we do what we can.
And if you want to contact us, you can contact us at sonsofkryos@yahoo.com. That is SONSOFKRYOS @yahoo.com. Thanks. We love hearing from you.